Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Work at Home Rockstar podcast. Excited for today's guest. He is the founder of Sovereign Stories and a coach at Team Sovereign. And what they do is they help to elevate values-focused leaders and creators to embrace their sovereignty and lead a life of significance. Very excited to be talking to Don Abad. Hey, Don, are you ready to rock?
Always ready, Tim. Let's rock.
Perfect. Start off with a story of success. Tell me a story of success in your life or your business that can be inspiring to others.
I'll probably have to chalk this one up to the last 23 months. I don't want to be insensitive or anything. I mean, I, like everybody else, have experienced, family members, friends, losing their livelihoods. I lost a couple of family members over the past couple of years. So I don't want to be insensitive to the fact that this crisis has impacted all of us in different ways. But that being said, the last 2 years have been a wake-up call for my wife, Kimmy, and I to really take a look at our priorities and reevaluate those priorities in a nutshell. And so one thing that we've always wanted, or at least I always wanted to do, was start and stay consistent with a podcast. And so I have a flagship show called Sovereign, which I began about 6 months prior. And I actually came up with another show a couple months ago, which is specifically geared towards our network marketing business, because that's a big area that we're involved in. Now, I actually had a show called Creators Creed that I launched about 3 years ago. And there's a stat out there saying that most podcasts die around episode 6. And not to be outdone, I did 7 episodes and then I quit. But it wasn't so much a loss because it really wasn't my voice. And I was sort of just trying to force myself to have a show without really thinking about the purpose behind it. So that's sort of why it sort of fizzled out all that time. But now that I really do want to get serious with my brand, I decided, you know what, I'm going to start something and I'm going to follow through with it. And the past 2 years has been a big focus on brand building. But in terms of the success is just really gaining, me deciding that I'm going to be consistent with it. And that's really it. It's nothing big. Everything's still ongoing. It's still a work in progress, but I'm just glad that I was able to take this thing that I've always wanted to do and just keep going with it.
Right on. Yeah, I hear you, like with the insensitive part of it, because it's one of those things where a tragedy happens and a lot of people did not do so well. And actually, I was a musician, so I lost a fair bit as well. But it also is an opportunity to reinvent yourself and to do something different. And so very happy to hear that things worked out well for you. So good on that. Now, with the good note, there are some bad notes along the way as well. And I'm wondering, can you share something in your entrepreneurial journey that did not go as planned and how you've recovered from it and maybe how we can avoid it or recover from it if it happens to us too?
Well, it's in a similar vein. I remember one particular moment. This was a couple of years ago. So I took my master's degree in film and media production at the New York Film Academy in LA. And that was right after I met my future wife at the time. Proposed to her, left from the Philippines to LA, did film school there for a year, and then tried to find work. And as I'm sure you can probably relate to, I was a struggling artist all that time because I didn't really know how to monetize my passions. At the same time, because I just met my wife, I was introduced to this whole world of network marketing and the idea of creating side income, which I thought, hey, as an artist who wants to pursue his passions without compromising on his values, without having to go through that barista phase, the waiter phase that most people think they have to go through in order to be a success. I wanted to get that business going as well. But long story short, those next 2 years, even when my wife and I were able to reunite later on after I graduated, it was just a battle, really, to make ends meet for the two of us. And there was one moment at a convention that we had for our business, our network marketing business. I was talking to my mentor, Mike Wilson. He's been in the industry for about 4 decades. So he's pretty much seen it all. And we were just, that was the moment we decided actually to switch gears and move back to the Philippines and start over. But obviously, that was a big letdown for us. We thought we were going to make it, chase the American dream and all that. And not that I don't believe in the American dream. It's just, we knew that there was a pivot moment coming. So I was just telling Mike, and we're Christian people. We believe in God guiding our steps. And I was just asking Mike, it's like, Mike, I wish that God would give even, a hint of a break, because it's been nothing but failure after failure after failure in business and in my film career. I don't know what to do. And Mike just looked at me, my mentor, and then he was like, Don, I can't speak for God, but may I encourage you to be grateful for what you have. A great woman by your side who hasn't left you in spite of all the failures, who really believes in the potential that you have to offer. And the fact that you're making this decision to go back to the Philippines, I know you've been a little lonely here in the US because you've been living by yourself. You're going home to friends and family, people that you love. And that was a life changer for me. It really taught me gratitude. And I guess the failure there, or it wasn't really a failure really, because it would have been a failure if I kept on feeling sorry for myself and blaming other people. In this case, it was God, it was the environment, the lack of opportunities, whatever it may be. So I was, blessed really to stop myself short of giving up due to just finding other things to blame and finding other things to change but myself. And I was glad that I was able to have a mentor like that, which we're going to be talking about later on in this conversation. But that's really it. That was a crossroads moment for me, and Kimmy and I are glad we got through it.
Wow. So a little bit about me. I actually spent about 10, 11 years in network marketing as well. And I did end up building a quite large organization in the very end of it after a good 5 years of struggling. And I would say it was the best and worst of times in that business. And you do end up learning a lot about gratitude, because when you're in a family like that, like I found that the environment was just so good and so bad at the same time, right? It was, you had people that were struggling, and this was their last chance, and so you had all that desperation there. But you also had people that all wanted something in their lives, and
Sure.
I found that just motivates you, and it just makes you think, wow, especially considering there's so many people of so many different backgrounds, that you see yourself as being ahead of somebody and behind somebody at the same time. So it was a really good experience, and I definitely encourage anybody to do it, because if it wasn't for that experience, you learn a lot about sales, marketing, about relationship building, about leadership, so many things that you learn about in network marketing. So I strongly recommend anybody, if you haven't done it before, try it. You might be surprised, right?
I always like to say that network marketing isn't just network marketing. It's a personal development seminar, course, training program in the guise of a direct sales venture.
Yeah. And you might get paid as you go too. So that's just a bonus, right?
Right.
Now, so, speaking of learning and growing and getting good at what you do and all that stuff, I used to say practice makes perfect. Now I say practice makes progress, because I think that captures it a little bit better. But I'm wondering, for you, how do you get good at what you do?
Well, just taking off from the last point I mentioned about, dedicating these next couple of years to branding myself, brand development. I sort of liken it to my craft as an artist. I'm a storyteller. I always like to say that I wear a lot of hats, but I'm a storyteller at heart. And so a lot of what I'm doing right now is just trying to find a way to really optimize my origin story and the path forward. And that's through my podcast, as I mentioned before. It's through my creative agency, which again is a lot about understanding the human condition and telling stories that sort of illustrate what people desire and what people want. And on a practical level, that just means a lot of writing. I do a lot of writing to get better at my craft, to get better at my speaking, to get better at my podcast, to get better at my filmmaking, really the whole bit. And even applies to our network marketing business, which we're still very much active in. And we've sort of moved into the internet marketing space and using the power of social media and the web to really take our business further than we ever did doing it the traditional way. And it's the same deal. It's all about storytelling. If you listen to the Your Sovereign Downline podcast, which is the platform that I use to sort of talk about our experiences and the lessons we've learned over the past collectively 15 years in the direct sales industry, about 80% of it is made up of stories about our failures, about lessons learned, about failures and lessons learned by our mentors and the people around us. And that's what I suggest to anybody who's looking to build a brand of any kind. If they're a solopreneur, if they're a small business owner, if they're a freelancer, nowadays, now that everybody has this sort of digital divide, this digital wall between them, the know, like, and trust factor is more important than ever before. People always say that, we live in the information age. I disagree with that. We live in the attention age now, especially after this whole crisis came about at the beginning of 2020. Now everyone's online. Now everybody's starting podcasts. Now everybody is an influencer effectively if you have a social media profile. And so the way you break through that noise, the way you stand up above the crowd and win in the attention economy is to be able to tell your story better and unashamedly, authentically, completely vulnerable, because people want real people. People want to follow real people. That's the type of person that folks will gravitate to, because there's so many other people doing exactly what you're doing. What differentiates you? Your story.
Love it. Yeah, absolutely. And so, and you're touching on a whole bunch of things that a lot of people say is that, people do business with people, right? And so the know, like, and trust thing is so important. And so if you don't really know your story, I think a lot of people focus too much on their craft, which is great. I mean, you got to get good at what you do. However, I assume that if you're in business in the first place, well, then there is some type of skill that you have, and there are going to be people that are going to want it. So what's going to differentiate you from anybody else is your story. And so, like, how do you go about, like, do you have like a framework of how you build your story, or like, how do you, if I was thinking to myself, okay, well, I don't have a story. I'm not telling a story. I'm just, a programmer or whoever you are. How do I go about starting to craft that story?
Well, there's a couple of different frameworks, but a really good 3-step framework that you can start with is hook, epiphany, solution. And that's really, if you're an entrepreneur or somebody who's offering something, you have to offer value first. But before that, you have to be relatable. So the hook, if you're a podcaster or if you have a YouTube channel, at the beginning, you're going to suck. There's no getting away from that. You probably can relate to that as well, Tim. I certainly can. And the thing is, those early struggles, including how bad you are at the beginning, that's forming an overarching narrative over time. That's actually the story of your growth as a personal brand, and people want to see that. And so all of your perceived shortcomings and weaknesses and flaws and all that, don't hide it. That's your hook. I always say that the challenge is the hook. If you're having a struggle right now, don't fret. Don't think that you're an imposter. Don't worry about imposter syndrome. In fact, I suggest you write down that current challenge, or if you uncover a weakness, like, you watch yourself on screen for the first time. If you put up your first YouTube video, you're like, oh my gosh, I stutter a lot. I stuttered like 20 times in the first minute. Don't try to edit that out even. Write that down. That is part of your hook, so that later on down the line, when you're 100 episodes in, you can say, hey, guys, watch my first video. You think I'm good now? I was a human being just like all of you from the very beginning. I stuttered 100 times in the first minute. That is the hook, and people will gravitate to you because of that. And then epiphany. Epiphany is what you found out, the lesson learned. Okay, you have a challenge, but then you persevered through it. How? What was that shining light that really got you through that moment? Right? That's the epiphany. People want to see you rising up, hero's journey and all that. And then solution. This is the call to action. If we're talking about content marketing, this is when people will be more than happy to buy whatever it is that you're selling, really, if we're talking about it on a purely practical level. Because you know nowadays there's a lot of talk about you know how do I pitch my services, how do I sell my craft without appearing salesy and sleazy, because again, there's a lot of noise here, right? We want to appear as authentic as possible. How do we not look like that sleazy salesperson? If you provided enough value, and if you were able to make yourself relatable using the first two parts of that framework, your hook and your epiphany, people are going to be clamoring for more value. And that's when they're going to say, I don't care whatever it is you're selling. I want to be a part of it. I want a piece of it because you've given me more than what I asked for in this free thing that you're offering, which is your content platform. So that's one way I go about it.
Don, that's so good. And you're 100% right that the relatability is important. And, that place that you're in right now, if it's in a bad place, that's what people are going to relate to, because the people that need your help are also in that place. Otherwise, why would they need your help? Right?
Yeah.
So now, okay. So let's just say I got my story. I'm all set. I'm ready to go out there and get some fans. What do I do? How do I get fans?
How do you get fans? Well, you turn on the camera, you turn on the microphone, and you just go at it. You start telling your story. And, whenever I tell people, I always, always, always preach the whole content is king thing, which everybody's done to death. And always the common concern that comes up is I don't have any expertise. And again, I know I'm sort of beating a dead horse here, but it comes down to just telling your story at first. Like, make the first 10 episodes or so about what drew you to what you're doing right now, what inspired you to share the message that you're trying to share through your platform. And that's what's going to attract fans to you. Now, here is a great strategy that I only learned recently. I sort of knew it logically at the back of my mind, but I never really took it seriously until now. And this is actually why I'm on your podcast right now, Tim, which is I set a goal for myself to appear on 30 podcasts in the next couple of months, because I'm actually launching a product for my network marketing business in the middle of March. And before that launch, obviously I'm putting out content. I'm doing all that. I'm trying to build a tribe. I'm trying to, build an audience of people who love what I'm giving out, who see value in what I do. And that's good. But one thing that a lot of people say, aside from the, I don't have any expertise, you'll build that up. Just tell your story. But the second concern people have is, they've been cranking out episodes. They've been cranking out content after piece of content, but their audience just doesn't seem to be growing. I know one guy that I was talking to, and he had a podcast that he'd been doing for 18 months, and he doesn't get more than, I think the most downloads he's gotten on an episode is, I don't know, 100 downloads on an episode. He doesn't get more than 20 people or something listening in every day. So basically it's not moving the needle forward, in his business. He's like, I'm doing the content thing. I'm being consistent with it. What can I do to get better? And then, I was helping him fix, some of his messaging and the way he structures his episodes and all that. But I also recommended to him to get on other people's shows, and leverage the list that these influencers, most likely ahead of where you are, where you want to be, they already have an audience. The easiest way to build up your audience is by leveraging the audience of the next person's. And what's great about this exercise as well is that it really forces you to learn how to give value unconditionally. Because if you want to get on other people's shows, you can't just pitch for the next 30 minutes, hour and a half, however long the conversation is. You actually have to give pure unadulterated value to even get permission to then pitch your thing. And that, to me, it has probably one of the most valuable things I've ever done in this little brand development journey that I've been on. One of the best lessons, and really an underrated lesson. We always hear that content is king, but before that, it really, really, really helps to have people come to that content platform in the first place. And that's by partnering up with other content creators in a similar vertical as yours and getting on their show, invite them to your show and just get that partnership going, because really that is a tide that raises all ships.
Yeah, I can speak to that too, because I've actually recently been invited to be on some other people's podcasts, and it is a totally different experience. And I mean, you learn so much about yourself, first of all, because you actually do realize that you have more to give than you think you do, because people are
Yeah.
asking you questions and you're answering them, and you're going, "Hey, geez, okay, that was pretty good," right? So
I should write that down.
yeah, I'm gonna write that down. That's gonna be part of my course. So yeah, and then on top of that, like you say, I mean, you get to the opportunity to create more relationships and all that stuff. So I definitely think
Yeah.
that's a good strategy as well. Now, you mentioned earlier about a mentor. And
Hmm.
so I want to talk about learning from the best and learning from other people. What's your impression of that? Like, did you always know that you needed coaches or something like that? Or was this something that sort of just dropped in your lap somehow?
I've known that, you know, I've known that it's always best to look to somebody who's already done what you want to do, or to look at somebody who's ahead in some other field that's not necessarily the same as yours, but they have a certain perspective on life and a certain perspective on, rising to the challenge and breaking through their obstacles that you can learn from. So basically, learning from experienced people, that's always been something that I put a lot of value in. In fact, back when I was in college, they actually had a mentorship program, really one of the only schools of its kind to do that. Once you enter, you get a professor or other faculty member assigned to you, and you do mentoring sessions with them after school. And that's been huge in my personal growth, my academic growth, my spiritual growth. And now that carries over into my business life as well, my personal life, marriage, all that. And really, mentorship, and apart from mentorship, community support groups, associating with like-minded people like yourself, that is equally valuable, because I really am an artist. If you take everything else out, I really am just the type of guy who likes to create things but not necessarily is knowledgeable about how to monetize it. And that was one of my biggest issues from the very beginning. And if I didn't find mentors, if I didn't start reading like crazy and looking into people like Gary Vee and Grant Cardone, all the usual suspects on internet marketing and modern entrepreneurship and all that, and rubbing shoulders with like-minded people in different groups, other artist groups, other groups of people who own creative agencies, um, learning from people who've already done it, that's been so invaluable. It's really filled those gaps between my passion and actually being able to provide for my family, which is more important to me than just doing my art. It would have been okay if I was single and I didn't have to put food on the table for anyone but myself. But ever since I got married half a decade ago, and now we have a 2-year-old, I really take mentorship seriously, because anything that I can improve on to better my game, to really scale everything up, that is it's priceless. You can't put a price tag on the right mentor.
Yeah. And you'd be surprised how willing people are to be mentors, right?
Oh yeah.
I found that a little bit surprising, I think, because when I first started in, sort of business, you sort of have this idea of people who are super successful as being sort of snobby. And I've found the opposite. I've found them to be very, very helpful and very, very willing, especially if you are somebody who's hungry, right?
Yeah. If they
So
yeah if you really come off as somebody who's genuinely there to learn, not like you come up to somebody for the purpose of getting something out of them. you know if you're a legitimately curious student, yeah, a lot of people are going to be flattered to share what they know, because that's appreciation. That's the sincerest form of flattery, really, is telling them, hey, I value what you do, I appreciate what you've done, I admire you. What makes you tick? I want to learn.
yeah,
Very
and
few people are going to say no to that.
well, and I mean, if you're ever on that end of the mentorship and then you recognize how good it feels to help somebody
Yeah.
who's hungry get to where they want to be, right?
Hmm.
So it is a
Yeah.
win-win. Now, how do you go about finding your mentors?
Well, I've been blessed that in our network marketing community. We already have mentors in place. So, I don't really have to look far. But now that, again, I'm looking to expand my horizons with this whole internet marketing thing and building a brand in 2022. And I've been really one of the ways I've been doing it is, again, in addition to mentors, it's rubbing shoulders with like-minded people. So through this whole journey of trying to get on 30 plus podcasts, I've already met over a dozen amazing people that I'm still in contact with right now. It's just upping that circle of influence for me. And really, it's free. It's free. The barrier to entry, there's no gatekeeping for the most part to find great people who just want to partner with other great people. It's easy. Like, now that everybody's looking for, socialization, everybody's looking to, find people who are positive, find people who are solution oriented. Everybody's hungry for that. And if you just look outside your bubble, it's easy to find the right person.
Totally. And especially now with, this whole Zoom thing, it's so much easier now to get in touch with
Oh yeah.
people and to get them to sit down with you, right? So now it
Yeah.
is time for your guest solo. Tell me what's exciting in your business right now.
Well, two things I'm excited about. I'm excited to really double down on my flagship podcast, Sovereign, and really nothing to pitch except if you value faith, family, freedom, if you're a storyteller of any kind. And by storyteller, I really categorize that as either an artist or an entrepreneur. And not even that that's your profession, an artist or an entrepreneur. If you're a creative professional, if you believe in innovation and getting out of living life out of the box, if you want inspiration on how to just level up your life in ways that you never thought before, and you want to listen to amazing high achievers who've really changed the game in their industries, that's what the Sovereign podcast is. It really teaches you how to be just that, sovereign human being. I always ask at the very end of the podcast, what does it mean to you to be a sovereign human being? It's sort of a gimmick just to cap off the show, but oftentimes that answer is kind of unnecessary, because through the conversation, you feel through their energy, through their stories, there's that word again, how it is to be a sovereign human being. And I want to inspire people, because we all need a little more inspiration, positivity nowadays. And so I'm excited to really double down, find even better guests, and really become more consistent with putting out amazing episodes on Sovereign. Other than that, Kimmy and I, my wife, we're really laser focused on really building up our network marketing business, and again, mentorship. We're learning from great people right now and using the power of internet marketing to really take this in a direction at a speed that we've never done before, doing it the traditional way. And if you are somebody in this industry, if you're a network marketer yourself and you want to learn how to build a sovereign downline, you want to build a modern downline using the power of social media and the web, you can listen to the podcast, Your Sovereign Downline. And this March 15, I'm actually launching a program. It's called Sovereign Downline Roadmap. And it lays out step by step exactly how Kim and I were able to create an automated system using sales funnels, using a content machine, to attract the right prospects, attract the right recruits and customers into your business, even while you sleep. And we're excited for that. So again, if you want to be among the first to get beta access to Sovereign Downline Roadmap on March 15, listen up to Your Sovereign Downline, the podcast. And you can even go to yoursovereigndownline.com. I have a free 5-day video course, which sort of acts as a teaser to the main event coming this March 15. So again, yoursovereigndownline.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Don. Yoursovereigndownline.com. Thank you for rocking out with me today, Don. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's been fun. Thanks, Tim.
Great. To the listeners, make sure you subscribe, rate, and comment. We'll see you next time on the Work at Home Rockstar Podcast.